In this video, you're going to see a VOD of me reacting to the ULA Delta IV Heavy carrying NROL-91. If you guys learned anything in this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment telling me what you learned. That way I can use that information to address any questions you guys might have in the future, and maybe even make some videos on questions you guys have about rocket. Okay, ULA is currently targeting a T0 for a liftoff of 6:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready for launch.
Mission director.
3,
You have permission to launch.
we have ignition of the RS-68A main engine, and we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket.
Execute, and we have indication of spacecraft separation.
Good afternoon, I'm Caroline Kirk, a systems engineer at ULA, and your host for today's Delta IV Heavy NROL-91 launch for the National Reconnaissance Office. I'm joining you here from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, where liftoff is currently planned for 2:53 p.m. Pacific.
Look at that beast.
In
Look at
addition
that.
to watching our webcast, you can also follow live mission progress at ulalaunch.com. Our count is currently in the second of 2 planned holds. At this time, the team is finishing fueling activities. At the request of our customer, we'll end today's live coverage following payload fairing jettison. Before we continue, let's check in on today's weather. The Space Launch Delta 30 forecast is looking good. Here are the numbers. The probability of violating launch constraints is 30%. Ground winds are 10 to 14 knots out of the northwest, and the temperature is 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility is 5 to 7 miles, and the primary concern for today is ground winds.
Okay, so all is looking good here for today's launch. I believe she just said
Today's launch is for the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. The NRO is the leader in developing, acquiring, launching, and operating the nation's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites to secure and expand America's advantage in space. The NROL-91 mission will strengthen the NRO's ability to provide a wide range of timely intelligence information to the national decision makers, warfighters, and intelligence analysts to protect the nation's vital interests and support humanitarian efforts worldwide.
so. I believe that right now all is looking good for launch.
Show our limit. Line items 863 and 866. It's the turbopump supply valve outlet pressure, CVC.
Okay, so they're continuing now to run down their checklists for liftoff, which is normal. ULA is always very good about piping in their commentary to their live streams. So this is the third to last launch of the Delta IV Heavy, launching here out of Vandenberg Space Force Station, Space Launch Complex 6 West. You'll notice that the pad here looks very different than what you'd expect it to look like over at the Cape, and that is true because this technically isn't a Delta IV Heavy pad. This was originally made to be a pad for the space shuttle. That's right, at a time we were going to fly the space shuttle out of Vandy. That was eventually put to rest after the tragic loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger, which meant that the Air Force deemed it no longer safe to continue with their idea of a once-around satellite deployment in a polar orbit with the space shuttle. Instead, the Air Force changed ways to do the deployments.
And we have a new T0 of 3:25 and 30 seconds Pacific. Let's learn more about this heavy lift rocket, the only rocket capable of launching NROL-91.
That tells us how heavy this is. If Atlas
Built
5,
in ULA's 1.6
if Atlas 5 551 can't carry it, then that tells us just how heavy this satellite probably is. But the launch complex, or the Air Force, after launch of Challenger, switched over to using, they switched over to using Titan, to provide its heavy lift capabilities for its satellites. And Titan did a great job. And eventually they started using Atlas Centaur. Atlas 3 eventually was built, and then they created the Extended Expandable Launch Vehicle Program, or the EELV, which its primary goal was to create heavy lift launch vehicles that were easily able to be built and expendable and cheap, in which they created 2 bids that won the process: the Delta IV Heavy and the Atlas V, 2 rockets we know and love today that sadly will, one of them will no longer be with us in a short time, and then one of them will no longer be with us in about 4 years, as Atlas V is going to be beginning to be phased out, for ULA's new rocket, Vulcan. So you can see what I was talking about there with the way that these buildings peel apart. This is done because they didn't want to have the space shuttle be able to be exposed to the public when they were launching spy satellites into it. Like it is at the Cape, if they were to launch, put a satellite in using the rotating service structure, it'd be pretty well exposed to the public and to the weather. They didn't want that over on the West Coast, because this was going to be the Air Force's space shuttle base. So because of that, they created those large housings that we see, which serve as a primary, now still just a weather protection service, for the Delta IV Heavy. Because if it's there, why not use it? Okay, let's see what the flight
To
profile
mitigate
is.
the firewall created by the hydrogen-burning Delta IV Heavy rocket, the staggered engine start sequence begins with ignition of the launch table HBOs, burning off the excess hydrogen injected into the
So the
flame duct.
HBOs, or H-buoys, are the hydrogen
Next,
burn-off,
the starboard Delta
units.
IV ROFE lights, igniting its RS-68A engine. Then, the center and port
The ROFEs are
RS-68A
inside of the
engines ignite,
combustion chamber
generating more than
of the
2.1
RS-68,
million pounds
which
total
create the actual
thrust,
ignition of the
lift
engine.
1.6 million pound triple core rocket off the pad. Shortly after liftoff, Delta begins a pitch over to attain the proper flight path while minimizing the pressure the vehicle experiences during flight. 81 seconds into flight, the Delta IV reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound. With propellant depleted in the port and starboard boosters, the engines shut down, and the boosters are jettisoned to shed their weight. Remaining booster engine then throttles to full power to maximize performance against gravity losses. Once propellant levels deplete in the center booster, the engine shuts down. The Delta IV separation system then activates to release the first stage. The vehicle now weighs approximately 7% of what it did at liftoff. Then, the Delta Cryogenic Second Stage, or DCSS, main engine ignites. During ascent, NROL-91 is protected inside a 5-meter diameter payload fairing.
So
After
crazy
traveling
looking
through
the size of the
densest
second
part
stage in
Earth's
comparison to the
atmosphere,
payload fairing.
Payload fairing is jettisoned. The Delta IV
That is a render.
cryogenic
That is
second
not whatever this
stage
satellite
will
looks
carry
like.
the
We do
payload to
not
its
know
final
what this
orbital
satellite looks
destination,
like.
where it will begin its national security mission.
So the reason that this center core right here, despite having the same amount of fuel as the side boosters,
L minus 44.
can last longer, is because, well, first off, these lower sections right here, these 3 orange tanks at the bottom, these are for your hydrogen. These upper 3 are for your liquid oxygen, and these 2 are to separate the 2. A lot of rockets nowadays use combined bulkheads. For instance, SpaceX uses them. Rocket Labs, Astra, Launcher, Virgin. Pretty much every company you can think of uses combined bulkheads. But you cannot do that with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen because the delta, or the change in temperature between the two propellants, is very different. The liquid oxygen will maintain at around negative 200-ish degrees Fahrenheit. However, the liquid hydrogen down here is going to maintain at about negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really cold. So, if you were to have this stacked together, you're not going to be able to maintain temperature as precisely. These also serve as your downcomers, where you have you can see these little bumps.
With today's launch, it's the end of an era here at Vandenberg Space.
You can see these little bumps here. Those are your raceways, where it's going to start taking the liquid oxygen from the tank, running it down this raceway, down to here, your engine section, where there's a bow tail protecting part of the engine, where you then have all those engine parts, have the two fuels mix and combined. But the reason that this center tank is able to last much longer than the side ones is they throttle down this engine. This one right here, they throttle down this engine during the majority of the flight. So, this engine right here, they throttle it down during most of the flight, which allows them then to have a much longer life performance for this center core than you would see on the two side boosters, allowing them to then jettison them during flight, removing a lot of the weight that comes with it, allowing better performance of that center core during the end stage of its flight for about a minute. I'm going to run to the bathroom. I will leave you guys with this video. Okay, you're back. So I want to clarify something that I find really interesting, because I find that a lot of people get this wrong here about the Delta IV Heavy. So I want to show something that I find really interesting. I'm also getting it wrong about the space shuttle, and even I guess Audion 5, the H2 rocket, H3 rocket, if we are to look at, if we were to look at footage from a liftoff here, you'll notice that you're gonna start seeing some sparks flying. You hear those?
T-minus 10,
Pyrotechnics
9,
just there.
8. We
This
should
is
have
not
ignition.
live.
6, 5.
But there are a bunch of sparks that fire. Now those sparks that fire, if I was to pull up, so these little sparks that you see firing are often called ROFIs. That is incorrect. These sparks you see flying are H-buoys, or hydrogen burn-off units. The ROFI is actually inside the engine itself. So, if I am to find a I want to go shopping for an RS-68A. If I am to find a diagram of the engine, I don't know if there is one. There might not be a good diagram. Okay. This might work. So, you can see all of this stuff with your pre-burners and your valves. Right in here, where you see that little MCC, there's a thing called a ROFI, or a radial outward firing initiator. And that's main purpose is to start sending sparks throughout the engine, similar to what you see on the ground. And those sparks light the hydrox mixture with your hydrogen and oxygen, which then create
those in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
that fire
Will be
out of the
as a
engine.
key member of the team,
There is a
and
big
for his
difference
concern for his
between the
teammates,
two, and I find
his
it really
community,
interesting
his genuine kindness
that
towards
somehow
others,
we've gotten
along
to
with
the
his
point where
excellent work ethic
the
and
two get
expertise,
mixed up
will be
together so
remembered
often.
by all who knew him.
But yeah, next time you hear someone say about ROFIs, you can correct them and say that those are actually the H-buoys, or the hydrogen burn-off units. It looks like beautiful weather out there today. I'm there in California. Yeah, this is the last Delta IV Heavy launch out of California, with, to my knowledge, I believe 2 more out of the Cape coming up after this, with those then being the final flight of the best rocket. Name. Okay. So what they were just talking about there is ULA.
With this launch, we are also remembering NRO teammates. Let's listen in to Mission Director Colonel Chad Davis.
So ULA always will dedicate a mission towards a member of the team who is no longer with them. And in this case, the dedication is towards a man named Don, who worked on the team with Delta IV Heavy for, I believe they said, the better part of 10 or 15 years. So it's really cool that ULA honors those that helped build these rockets. So we are about 35 minutes out here from the liftoff of Delta IV. If you guys have any questions about the Delta IV Heavy, feel free to ask and I can answer them to the best of my ability. I like to think I'm fairly knowledgeable about rockets, this one especially. So we're now 35 minutes and counting. Teams are, according to ULA, teams are on track to support the new liftoff time, and ground winds are not a concern at this time. It looks as if weather is about 90% go, and we don't actually have a window for today's launch. We know that there is one. However, we don't really know what it is, mainly because they don't give us information like that. Because if they were to give an information about a specific window, theoretically, since this is a national security mission, the government fears that there's a chance that someone could figure out what orbit this is going into. something up here.
L minus 33 minutes. Done.
MD, LC, net 1.
CMD.
MD, I'll turn net 1 over to you for your dedication.
Roger. Today's launch is dedicated to the memory of several NRO teammates. William Preston Kahn devoted his 48-year career in NRO's Office of Space Launch, enhancing our national security launch mission. Godspeed, Bill. Larry Loveland was a kind soul, friend to many, devoted husband, and proud father. For 29 years, Larry provided dedicated support to the NRO and was an expert in translating mission-critical launch requirements. Loved and missed by all who knew him, Larry is forever in our hearts. Dan McKaylee's 33-year NRO career included tours and multiple directorates where he provided dedicated mission support to the warfighter. Men and women across our nation who were deployed in harm's way returned home safely to their loved ones, thanks to the intelligence delivered by the satellites that Dan kept in mission. For 35 years, Perry Fath went the extra mile to deliver premier mission payload capabilities, providing vital strategic intelligence to the White House and tactical intelligence to deployed warfighters. Perry was a brilliant engineer, laser-focused program manager, and director who believed in a one-team partnership. Though gravely ill, he passionately and selflessly strove to fulfill his lifelong mantra, never compromise the mission. MD out.
Thank you, MD.
To do that. Oh, that's very big. That is very big. Okay. Let's shrink that down. And it's disappeared. Great. Oh, Lord. Okay. Try that again. His are so big. I want to have it fit to the screen.
This is Delta Mission Control. Activities are on track to support a new launch time of 3:25:30 p.m.
Just keep that.
Pacific.
There. Okay, so they're currently targeting 3:25.
I have three items that we discussed much earlier that I would like to close without briefs to you.
Roger. LD, net 1.
LD on 1.
MD, net 1.
MD.
Proceed, AC.
Okay, first was we had two RLM exceedances noted. This was tied to a temperature change in the core engine inlet, and this was attributed to a helium bubble that was passed through the system. We have evaluated that, both the Denver team and R68. We have no concerns with that bubble being there and it's been passed, and we recommend proceeding on that one.
I'll explain what they're saying.
LC concurs. LD.
LD concurs.
MD.
MD concurs.
Okay, second one was the fill and drain valves on the core and starboard. We had issues with getting them to cycle. We did some discussion on that, and the plan is with the cycles that we did perform at that time, we were confident proceeding with the rest of the count. We will do a standard cycle of them at the new, what would be L-minus 25-minute mark. And assuming that that is successful, we will recommend proceeding. We are recommending proceeding based on that.
LC concurs. LD.
LD concurs.
MD.
MD concurs.
Okay, and the last one was also a couple of RLM items. This was tied to the turbine supply valve pressure setting. This was also determined to be a issue with where we were in the countdown versus where RLM was monitoring. So a
Go ahead,
condition there
knock knock.
So a condition that was not expected but completely understood. We will recommend proceeding on that one. It was only due to a delay in the count for today.
LC concurs, LD,
LD concurs.
and MD.
MD concurs.
And RLM, LC, that one.
Harlem, go ahead.
I just want to verify with you the engine and inlet OTCs, they've all been cleared.
Negative. Was getting ready to do that, and then I received the second set of OTCs, 863 and 866.
Okay.
So it interrupted me from clearing them.
Right. Go ahead and clear those, and then after the L25, we'll be able to clear the other two.
Roger.
Okay, so to break that down, and how durable is the orange thermal insulation? Very. I mean, considering this rocket sets itself on fire, that should give you perspective. It is not completely durable. We have seen with SLS a couple of cracks form due to stress fractures. There is one on SLS on the Orion Service Module adapter.
Delta rockets have launched many of the world's vital space assets.
That conical structure that you see that combines to the ICPS, or the internal cryogenic propulsion stage. We've seen a couple cracks form in the SOFI, or the spray-on foam insulation. However, it is still perfectly safe, and as you can see right there, this foam can survive a lot. I don't have exact numbers, but it is very, very durable. It's funny that we use the term foam because it is a foam when it's released, but it's actually more it's more representative as almost concrete in the way it feels and looks. I want to break down what the MD was just talking about on net 1. So they said that they had a temperature rise due to a hydrogen bubble inside the core stage. So what it sounds to me is that a hydrogen bubble formed inside of the hydrogen tank on the core stage, causing a slight increase in pressure. They said, however, that they believe that the hydrogen bubble has dissipated, temperatures have risen back down to what they should be, and they have no fear of continuing and are clear to proceed on that issue. As for the next issue, they said that there is a problem with the fill and drain valve on the port and starboard boosters. These right here, 1 and 2. The fill and drain valves are located on the back side. Right here, you can see that there is, that wants to focus, there are these little bumps right there. On the real life booster, those are your fill and drain valves into the bow tail. And then from there, they fill up. They go around, actually. And then fill up through these raceways into, straight up into the hydrogen tank, and then through the raceway up into the liquid oxygen tank. Now, as for the problem, they didn't go into detail as to what the problem is. However, they did say that they currently believe that they can cycle them and will be cycling them right now, and then they if they want to continue the hold for that problem, will be given at L-25 minutes. As for the last issue, the turbine supply valve for the center core engine was misaligned compared to where it should be. They went on to state that this is actually a problem with. They went on to say that this is actually a problem with where they were in the count versus where they should have been, because they started the count late today, and said that the behavior that they were seeing is completely understood, and while not normal, is safe to continue as long as they pick up the hold where it should be picked up. Then the alignment should be clear for liftoff. Then they went on to talk to OTC, or went on to talk to LOX, which had 3 or 4 issues that they were working on. And MD said to clear 2 of those issues, they clear the most 2 pressing before the L-25 minute, which should be coming up in a couple of moments here. And then the other 2 issues, they can continue proceeding to clear those OTC issues on after the L-25. OTC, I do not know what it stands for exactly, but those are essentially your marks in the count where it's saying that there's something. Essentially, think of them as a red line that pops up. Hence why he was speaking to Redline Monitor. Because a little red tag popped up in the system saying, hey, this isn't right. Can you fix this for us, please? Because this is not what it should be doing. But it sounds like that's all cleared out, and they're not currently facing any issues. They're currently facing some issues for today's liftoff. However, they seem to be well within today's well understood and within the scope of what they'd expect. When you saw me down doing that while they're talking, I was writing some text on my phone showing what was going on, so I'd remember what to talk about. So a plan has been agreed upon on what to do going forward with these issues by the teams, and those will be addressed in a couple of moments. And they're continuing to go ahead with the launch for 3:25:30 Pacific Daylight Time. And look at that, Delta 2. Let's listen into what this video is talking about right now.
Several ways. The fuel tanks were stretched, a new payload fairing was developed, and larger solid rocket motors were incorporated. The
They're going over the history of the
resulted
Delta
in
rocket
increased
family.
Performance and flexibility. By the mid-1990s, the Delta II had delivered the fully operational 24-satellite GPS constellation. And though it was developed for the Air Force, Delta again became a reliable partner to both NASA and its commercial customers.
God, the Delta's an awesome medium-lift vehicle.
Over the course of its more than 20-year run, the Delta II has launched some of America's best-known scientific and exploration missions.
+4, 3, 2, we have main engine start.
God, I based on the setup that Vulcan has, Vulcan should produce, when that finally launches, a very similar plume on the pad. The way it just shoots up all that smoke when it has its 9-solid motor version.
Delta II launched the Global Star and Iridium
So cool.
constellations, which brought satellite telephone communication to the world. Continuing its evolution to meet the growing demands of its satellite customers, the Delta
What's your
team
favorite launch
developed
vehicle to
the
hold
more
the Delta
powerful
name?
Delta III.
I mean,
Though
you're
short-lived,
looking at it.
Delta
Who
III
doesn't love the
doubled
Delta
the
3?
performance of
No,
the Delta II.
I mean, Delta 4 Heavy, it's so good. I mean, you know that my first launch was a Delta 4 Heavy Parker Solar Probe. You can feel the Delta 4 Heavy. It is a beast. And we need to go down. Or one of the next final two Delta 4 Heavies out of the cave.
Began development of the next generation Delta rocket.
It's truly a
in the
beautiful
1990s.
vehicle. The Delta 4 Medium is also, I think, really underrated. It was powerful. Like, it could compete with Atlas in terms of its actual...
All Delta 4 configurations
I believe
begin
Delta
with a
4
common
Medium
booster core
Plus, or
powered by
Delta
the
4
RS-68A
Delta 4
main
4
engine.
Medium Plus
The Delta 4
was
Heavy,
actually
with
able
its
to
3 common
compete
booster
with
cores,
Atlas
deliver our nation's largest
551
missions to
in
orbit.
terms of its actual capability, which is really interesting. I think we also often tend to think of Delta 4 Medium as being a little
Delta 4 launch vehicles
lower
are produced
than
at a
what
1.5
the
million
Delta or
square
than what
foot
Atlas is
state-of-the-art
capable of.
facility in
Actually, it's a
Decatur,
very
Alabama.
capable
Processing
vehicle.
and launch takes
It just
place
was a
at
little more
Space Launch
expensive than
Complex
Atlas was,
37 at Cape
and
Canaveral
because of
Air
that,
Force Station, and Space
Atlas,
Launch Complex 6 at
got
Vandenberg
the market
Air Force
more,
Base
and
in
we don't see any more Delta 4 Mediums flying today.
Range safety arm light on. Affirmative. Range ready. Ready. Water system ready.
From its early beginnings as a weapon and deterrent, through its transformation into a space launch vehicle,
Oh, wow.
Delta has reliably supported our nation for more than 60 years. Delta's legacy as a workhorse continues today and is a testament
It
to the
is.
persistence, dedication, and commitment of an enterprising team that has continually evolved the Delta rocket to support a changing world.
A truly beautiful
5,
vehicle.
4, 3, 2, 1.
God, look at all that black smoke that comes from that SoFi lighting on fire. Truly beautiful vehicle. So I feel like I should mention all that little vapors that you see coming off the vehicle. That is currently boiling off gaseous oxygen mixing in with the
ULA's
other
Vulcan rocket
stuff.
is nearing its inaugural launch. Here,
nearing the other, mixing in with that other stuffs in the atmosphere, creating condensed water vapor. And that's all that white stuff you see pulling off the side of the vehicle
Really
is.
strong yet lightweight orthogrid panels that form Vulcan's propellant tanks. The panels are then bump pressed to form the curves required to complete
Okay,
the tanks.
according to Michael Baylor from NASA Spaceflight, the cycle of the fill and drain valves on the port and starboard boosters have failed, and the teams are moving over with Redline Monitor and ULA Anomaly Chief to Anomaly Net 15 to talk and discuss an ongoing plan.
Following an ultrasonic inspection, 5
Presumably
complete
means
panels
they
of
will not be
liquefied
lifting off
natural
on
gas
time
or
today.
LNG tank are assembled and joined together
We'll see
using
what-
friction stir welding. Unlike traditional welding, where filler material is used to join components, friction stir welding uses a head to stir the metal of the 2 panels together as it moves down the seam. The resulting joint is stronger.
So we'll
and produces
see
a lighter weight,
where
higher
that
performing
goes.
tank. The process is repeated to create the liquid oxygen, or LOX tank, followed by attaching domes to complete the tanks. Circumferential
I love
friction
Tori Bruno
stir
on Twitter.
welding is then
Someone
used to join the 2 propellant tanks
tweeted him
comprise
a
the
warning
Vulcan
because there
booster.
were a couple microwave bursts
As
and
production
coronal mass
continues on the
ejections that
booster
just occurred a
stage,
couple minutes
stretch
ago.
forming gore
And he
panels for
said,
the
yes,
Centaur's
I know,
second stage
under
propellant
control,
tanks
thanks.
is underway. The stainless steel gore panels are welded
Truly
together
an incredible
to create the
man.
propellant tank domes.
Yeah, so
The
right now
gore
they're
welder is
discussing
one of
their
several
next
highly
generation
specialized
Vulcan
welding
rocket,
stations in the Centaur
which
production
truly,
Just
truly
down the
will be a
aisle,
beast. I'm
Centaur
so
5's
excited to
massive
see Vulcan
intermediate
finally
bulkhead
fly.
is mated to its
Hopefully later
ultra-thin
this
tank.
year.
Once both propellant tanks are welded,
It's
they're
gonna
mated
be a
together
beast.
to create the Centaur 5
I've
stage.
maybe it's because I'm a ULA fanboy,
Once the
but I
propellant
really
tanks
think
are
people do
joined,
not
the
understand
5.4-meter booster is sprayed with
just
foam
how
insulation
powerful
before moving to final assembly.
in the launch vehicle market
Twin
Vulcan will
BE-4
end up
engines are
being.
hot
I think it's
fired,
going to do a
then
lot
mated to
better
Vulcan's thrust structure.
than people tend to
With
think.
production complete, the booster makes its way
And I think
on
we're
the
going to see
ULA's
smart
rocket ship
reuse
for its journey to the launch
pretty soon after it starts flying. Like, I would not be surprised if in the
Meanwhile,
first,
at Cape Canaveral Space Launch Complex
like, on the
41, the water suppression system has been upgraded and tested, along with other modifications, including new, larger fuel storage tanks. In the Vertical Integration Facility, or VIF, platforms have been modified to accommodate the larger Vulcan rocket. Following the 8-day journey to Cape Canaveral, the booster is offloaded and
if you know
transported
me,
to the
you know
VIF,
I love
where
water
it is lifted onto
deluge.
the
That
newly
makes me
constructed
so
Vulcan launch
happy to just see
platform, or
video
VLP.
of that. I am
The
going
first Vulcan
to.
booster then travels a third of a mile to the pad.
I'm
for
gonna
testing,
have to
followed
go
by
back
2.7
after and watch
miles to
that
the Space Flight
again
Processing
to
Operations Center,
take note.
or SPA, for additional testing.
That makes me
This
so
launch
happy to see
site
them
testing
actually talk
culminates
about
with
a new
another
water
trip to the
system.
pad, where the LOX and LNG tanks will be filled and
Okay,
chilled to flight
according to
levels
Michael
and
Baylor, the
temperatures.
Anomaly team has redone the fill and drain valve cycling, and it has passed, and they're continuing to press on with the count. So all is good, and they seem to be working no technical problems at this time. Still monitoring the slight probability of ground winds causing an abort today. But all is
LC LOX 2.
LOX 2.
At this time, second stage LOX is ready for terminal count.
Roger. OS, LC.
Go, LC.
First step 1170 OM, perform vulnerable data transfer to backup CCLS.
Roger.
Okay. So when LOX 2 was just talking, LOX 1 is the LOX tanks. The LOX 1 is these bad boys right here. And then LOX 2 is this bad boy right here. This actually it's in here. You wouldn't be able to see it, but the liquid oxygen tank, the second stage. And they were just saying that the second stage liquid oxygen tank is good and ready to pressurize for terminal count when needed.
On-time verification.
Roger.
OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch in the enable position.
SRB ignition enabled.
Redline monitor, verify redline monitor, and event table are in the correct configuration for terminal count.
Verified.
RC, verify solar radiation acceptable for launch.
Verified.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2. Launch enabled.
FPSR. OCUs on.
HCS count started.
Fin valves locked. Rock report range status.
Range green.
Status check.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go S-Bird 4.
3, 2, 1.
We have
God, Atlas is a beautiful rocket.
and liftoff.
Look at the way that
Alliance
the
Atlas
tower
V
shaped.
rocket carrying Sivers GO6 for the United States Space Force.
The last ever 4-meter payload fairing to fly out of the Cape. Insane. There's still like 30 launches left of Atlas. All of them just happen to be 5-meter payload fairings. And those ones are all flying. The only 4-meter payload fairings that are left are
50 seconds flight, Mach 1,
flying out of the
5 times
Cape.
supersonic. Vehicles now passing
Flying out of the
maximum dynamic pressure.
I can't speak. The only 5-meter or 4-meter payload fairings that are left are flying out of Cali.
SRBs. And with good indication of payload fairing jettison.
So there's your onboard for today. There's that rocket cam view. Beautiful as
12
always.
minutes.
Okay, we're
MEQ,
currently 12 minutes from launch.
Go.
Initiate retract data logger just prior to the L7 pole.
Roger.
Okay, I need to go use the bathroom again because I have a tiny, tiny, tiny baby boy bladder. I will be back in a moment. I'll let you keep watching this.
LC has gas.
Go ahead, gas.
Per step 1180, would you like me to switch to the launch table scan pattern?
Affirmative.
Roger.
LC on 1 AC.
Go AC.
Okay, we did troubleshoot the fill and drain valve. We cycled them 10 times. We're in good condition. We recommend proceeding.
LC concurs. Proceeding with count.
All communications switch to channel 1. All personnel and visitors remain in present position until launch. Maintain operational silence in the LCC. L-minus 10 minutes.
RC, verify solar radiation limits acceptable for launch.
Verified.
Terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds a launch constraint any time after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold. OS, flight control, perform launch on time verification.
Roger.
OSM, verify the whole fire switch is in the proceed position.
Ready to proceed.
RLM, verify the red line monitor and vent table are in the correct configuration for terminal count.
Verified.
Okay, so we're now at L-minus 10 minutes. And counting. Vehicles continue to look
L-minus
good.
9 minutes.
We're now at L-minus 9 minutes and counting. Vehicles continuing to look good for a liftoff here.
LC flight control, launch on time verified.
Roger. LC.
Following liftoff, viewers watching from Southern California may be able to see the Delta IV Heavy in flight. To get a closer look at this visibility map, check out at ulalaunch.com on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah, it's not going to be as easy to see because it's only a daytime launch. If this was a nighttime launch, it would be a lot easier to see. Okay, so they've cycled the fill and drain valves 10 times. And everything is looking good on those valves. Currently tracking no issues heading into the T-minus 7 minute, or the L-minus
8 minutes.
7 minute poll, which will be coming up in 1 minute. That will be the go, no go poll, where they will announce the station's name. Station will have to respond with the go or no go. If all stations are go, they are cleared to proceed and to end the hold at L-minus 4 minutes, where the clocks will sync,
This
and your
is Delta
L-minus and your
Mission
T-minus
Control
will be the
at
same.
T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We remain in the planned hold as launch preparations continue. In a few moments, Launch Conductor Scott Barney will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the count. 27 engineers and managers are polled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check before launch for all Delta vehicle systems, ground systems, the spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Western Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final polling of the launch team.
Okay, this is always one of the most fun parts of any launch.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. First stage systems, propulsion. Go. Hydraulics.
Go.
Locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Second stage systems, locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
COM.
Go.
GC Cube.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
HASGAS.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Red line monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Ops safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count.
There you have it.
Verified T0 is set for 22:25:30 Zulu.
Verified.
There you have it.
L-minus 6 minutes.
Establish swing arm lock pins pull.
Active.
Now getting ready for liftoff in
Polling
about
is
6
complete.
minutes
The ULA
of
launch
the
team
Delta IV
and
Heavy.
the NRO mission director are go for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will be hearing Scott Barney guiding the team through the final steps in the countdown procedure. Several critical activities occur in the final minutes before launch, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the port, center, and starboard.
So pretty much what she's saying is the teams want to cross their T's and dot their I's and make sure that everything is looking good for launch. Because there's a million ways a rocket launch can fail, there's only one way it can go right. So they want to cross their T's, dot their I's, make sure everything is looking good before they proceed to lift off at 3:25:30 Zulu. Let's listen in here.
Providing launch vehicle ascent data.
I'll probably shut up here once as I have been when the team's member leader Scott Barney is speaking, just because I do not want to cover up the incredible ascent data and nets that ULA provides. ULA Northrop Grumman do a great job providing their nets during liftoff. I really wish all the other companies did that as well. Okay, we should be about 1 minute now. So they're going to release the hold and pick up the count.
This is Delta Mission Control.
And the hold has been released. Now T-minus 3 minutes, 55 seconds and counting.
The countdown clock has resumed, and we are go for launch at 3:25:30 Pacific. With liftoff approaching, we're going to raise the volume on our launch team so you can hear the final preps taking place.
Okay, everything looking good here. Now about T-minus 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Looks like there's a beautiful day out in California. I can't wait to see the videos, all the photographers.
307.
Random ass time to call out, but okay. There's probably some critical event on the vehicle that happens at 307, but normally I'm used to only like, calling out in intervals of 5 or 10.
249.
FPS internal.
Okay, so the flight termination system has been turned on. That essentially is the thing that lets the rocket go kaboom if it decides to go off course. I know a lot of rockets will use det cord down the side of the tank, so the tank will just rupture in half.
CBC locks at flight pressure and flight level.
Okay, the common core boosters are the locks, and the liquid hydrogen tanks are at flight pressure, meaning that they've been pressurized to their final pressurization and are clear to proceed for liftoff.
TBC LH2 at flight pressure and flight level. 2 minutes. 159.
Vehicle internal.
Hydraulic pressure at 4,000.
155.
Launch sequencer start.
A lot just happened. Pretty much the vehicle is now taken over full control, and the liquid hydrogen system for the liquid hydraulics, whatever
140.
term they're using for the thrust vector control, are nominal.
137.
The flight termination system has been enabled. Vehicle is on internal power as well.
T-minus 90 seconds.
Flight
The
termination
launch
system
vehicle,
has been
payload,
armed.
Ground systems and Western Range are go for launch.
120.
OCU's armed.
FCS count started.
Flight termination system count has started. Beautiful day out there.
1 minute.
Engine
T-minus 1 minute.
Rock, report range status.
Screen.
Rock range green.
Roger.
50.
Okay. Go Delta 4 Heavy. Go NROL.
Second stage LH2 secure at flight level.
30.
Status check.
Go Delta.
Go NROL-91.
Godspeed, Delta 4 Heavy. Now standing by for those H buoys or those hydrogen burn-off units.
14.5.
Trophy ignition.
Had the ignition of
10.
those
Tester
internal
start.
rofies
Minus 10.
and the H buoys.
9, 8.
That smoke
7,
firing is from
6,
those sparkers.
5.
We have a good
4.
ignition.
We have ignition. 2, 1.
Liftoff of the Delta 4 Heavy, carrying NROL-91.
United Launch Alliance Delta 4 Heavy rocket carrying NROL-91 for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Beautiful liftoff there.
Begun the pitch over maneuver.
A vehicle is pitching downrange at this time.
All three RS-68 engines look good at this time.
R-68As are nominal. Those R-68As are those 3 main engines providing the majority of the power for this flight.
Core booster is now throttling down to the partial thrust level.
That's center booster.
And that core booster has now reached...
This one right here has throttled down.
Vehicle ascent data.
Parameters continue to look good.
Combustion chambers are looking good.
Vehicle is now 3 miles in altitude, 5 miles downrange distance, traveling at a velocity of 1,000 miles per hour.
Okay. All looks good so far.
Engine parameters continue to look good at this time. Vehicle is now passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. Mach 1. Delta 4 is now supersonic.
Look at that. Those condensation trails forming as it passes through that regime of maximum aerodynamic
Port,
pressures.
Starboard and center RS-68 engine parameters are within the expected operating parameters right now.
All is looking good. Delta 4 Heavy is continuing nominal. That beautiful onboard view. Absolutely beautiful day out there.
The second stage reaction control system pressurization valve has opened. Delta 4 now 130 seconds into flight, flying at an altitude of 19 miles, downrange distance of 14 miles.
Okay, 19 miles in altitude, 14 miles downrange.
Delta 4 has gone to closed loop guidance. Vehicle body rates are as expected.
So another thing that I've seen people point out is that this is also the last launch for Delta IV Heavy as the world's largest operational rocket, as SLS will be launching
3 minutes remaining
before
in
the next
booster
time
phase
a
of
Delta
flight.
IV Heavy launches.
Delta 4 rocket weighs now just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at
You
a
can
rate
see
of almost
those
5,000 pounds per second.
you can see those little pieces of paint chipping off those strut arms that hold the center, that
1
hold
minute
that second,
until
or
port and starboard booster engine
the port and
cutoff.
starboard boosters. Those the paint chipping off those strut arms, revealing that gray metal inside of it instead of those nice
And
white
all
and red
three
paint.
RS-68 engines are showing good performance at this time.
RS-68 engines are nominal.
Vehicle body rates are near zero. 30 seconds remaining now until the port and starboard booster engines cut off.
Body rates are good. Standing by now for the side booster separation or cutoff,
And 2
followed by
minutes
separation.
remain in booster phase of flight. 2 minutes remaining until BECO.
Okay, ULA uses a bit of different terminology than most companies. BECO for ULA is the shutdown of that
Strap-on
center
boosters are
engine.
now throttling down to the partial thrust level.
Okay, the strap-ons are now throttling down.
Engine response looks good. We've had strap-on booster cutoff.
There you go.
And strap-on separation.
A beautiful separation of those
The
side
center core
boosters.
RS-68A is now throttling back up to the high power level.
That center core now throttled up.
The upper stage lock system has begun the boost phase chill down sequence to begin thermal conditioning of the RL-10 engine.
Okay, so they're beginning to chill down that RL-10
1
engine
minute
on the
remaining
second
in the
stage.
booster phase of flight.
Now 1 minute remaining in the first stage burn of flight.
And now the upper stage fuel system has begun the boost phase chill down sequence.
Absolutely beautiful flight there of the Delta IV Heavy. This vehicle continues to follow its nominal track downrange.
Core engine chamber pressure continues to look good at this time.
Chamber pressures are looking good.
Core booster is now throttling down in preparation for BECO.
Okay, throttling down for booster engine cutoff.
And we have BECO, booster engine cutoff.
Okay. Next event should be the...
And we have stage separation.
Okay.
Successful separation of the first and second stages.
Okay, good. Next should be...
We're seeing the nozzle deployment begin on the upper stage engine.
We should have pressurization, and we have ignition of the RL-10B upper stage. Absolutely beautiful. You can see it moving around. There's payload fairing jettison.
And we have ignition on the DCSS.
Looks like the commentary is a little bit behind there of what was actually happening.
This is Delta Mission Control at T+6 minutes and 30 seconds. We just heard flight commentator Rob Kesselman confirm the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight. And all systems continue to operate nominally.
Okay.
At this time, we'll end our live coverage.
Well, if they're ending it, I'm going to be ending it too. We had a big stream today. I'll be cutting the sections up into parts and uploading those individually as VODs to the channel. And then we will edit together the Pokemon Therian episode into one nice little video. Yeah. A long stream day. We've been up for 3 hours and 20 minutes here. So, I hope you guys had a good stream. If you haven't already and you're watching, make sure to like and subscribe, please. And I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.